Hi everyone, it's Janine from It's Naturally Neen, and today I wanted to discuss the energetics behind rheumatoid arthritis. Specifically, I want to share with you what I feel has been tied in with my experience with arthritis. Every disease has an emotional / energetic / spiritual component. Conditions manifest in your energetic field before they manifest in your physical life. So, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 15. And for most of my life, I relied solely on medication to address symptoms until that became not a successful approach and I started looking into holistic. Currently, I'm doing a mix of both, and I find that for right now, that's what's necessary for me. But during this period of transition and reflection, I've done a lot of inward work, and what I've noticed is there are some beliefs that I was carrying that I believe were correlated with the arthritis, and I'll share those with you now. So first, the energy of arthritis to me just feels very restricted, very constrained, very tight, almost boxed in, paralyzing, crippling. Those are the words that resonate for me. Now, how does that relate to my beliefs and my emotions? So, growing up and then continuing into adulthood until I started to really work on this, I had a deep fear of making the wrong move, of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, being bad. And this fear really crippled me. It really paralyzed me. It would manifest in ways that I would need to ask somebody or multiple people often for advice as to what to do before I would act. And I'll give you a few examples. And these are more simple, silly examples, but for me, they were real. So when I started dating, I didn't want to say the wrong thing to a guy. I didn't want to be rejected. And so I would ask my friends what to say. And the reality is that these guys were getting to know 10 of my friends as opposed to me. But I couldn't respond to their text message until A, B, C answered my text about what to say. And so I literally couldn't move. I couldn't make a move until someone gave me a green light to do so. When I first started working in a professional job, I doubted my ability to communicate effectively, and I needed other people to read my emails. This is so not sustainable, but this is a pattern I have been playing out my entire life, and I didn't realize until I got into adulthood and started doing this inner work. So essentially, the feeling that I'm talking about here is just feeling stuck, feeling very stuck and like you can't make a move. And ironically, that correlates with how I feel when I have symptoms of arthritis. Another big feeling, belief for me growing up was this feeling of I feel like I'm in a prison. And these were circumstances of my childhood. I'm not saying that I was in a prison. This isn't meant to critique anyone, but this was the feeling that I had due to certain circumstances in my childhood. I felt like I was a slave. I felt like I lived in a prison. I felt like I was under a microscope. Like everything that I did would be judged, criticized, I would get yelled at, I would be punished. And so I felt very much like I was living in a prison and I didn't have any room to make a wrong move. And ironically, again, when I developed the arthritis, the feeling is like I'm a prisoner in my own body. I literally went from being a prisoner in one circumstance to being a prisoner in another circumstance. Another way that this restrictive energy showed up is being very self-critical. This was something I also learned in childhood. I had a lot of criticism directed at me, and then I turned it inwards. And I feel like the things that I would say to myself, I didn't even realize, but this inner voice was just not nice, extremely harsh. I made myself under the microscope. So when you feel like you can't, again, I'm going to say make a wrong move, like you have no room to move, you have no breathing room, you have no flexibility, no flow, no compassion for yourself, the body in turn becomes very rigid. Okay, another form of restriction was black and white thinking. Very much, this is good, this is bad. That's right, this is wrong. I put myself in a box with this thinking, and it's very paralyzing because it's so the contrast. This is right, this is wrong. It puts so much pressure on you. There's no in-betweens, there's no gray areas, there's no compassion for yourself. It's like, you better get it right or else you're bad. And along the same lines, another way this showed up, and I mentioned this just a second ago, but putting myself in a box. I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to necessarily be seen, because being seen for me had resulted in not very nice consequences in the past. So I wanted to just fit in. I didn't want anyone to notice me. I will do what the other girls do. I will play the sports that they play. I'll wear the clothes that they wear. And I put myself in the box that I thought society wanted me to fit in. But that's not the box that I was meant to fit in. And so it felt very confining, very constricting. Like, I just see myself like wanting to bust out of this box, but like little me didn't know better. But again, it's that feeling of just like you're in very tight quarters. And then that's how I later felt in my body. And I know that there's more that I could add, but the last point that I wanted to add today is that I had a lot of anger. I would also say rage, resentment, frustration that I was not able to get out. And I feel like that those emotions are like fire, and I stuffed them down. And when I developed the arthritis, it was like everything felt like it was on fire. It wasn't physically burning, but in a way it kind of was, like the grinding of your bones on one another, like the grinding and cracking of the joints. It just felt like a hot fire in there. And of course, the red swelling inflammation, very heat related. And so I never had an outlet. I didn't know how to express my emotions. I didn't want to feel my emotions. And I stored them down inside. And I do believe that they contributed to the disease that I later developed, the dis-ease in my body. Now, I'm not saying that these emotions, these beliefs would apply to everyone, but I am sharing because I do think that they may resonate with some people. And so what can you do? I've done a lot of work. I gotta say, I was in talk therapy for, I don't know, maybe 7 years. And I didn't think that helped me. Like, the first 6 months, I was like, this is great. And then after that, it was just a total plateau. And my personal belief is because you don't get at the root of what's actually causing things to manifest in your life. I then went on to do personally my own shadow work, journaling, breath work, EMDR. I work with energy healers. That's my personal preference. And I am now going to be trained in something called RRT, Rapid Resolution Therapy. I've had this therapy done to me several times, and it has made a huge difference in my life. I would love to be able to share that with others. So please stay tuned. Come April, I will be offering those services. If this resonated with you, please click subscribe to see more content like this. I love